had a wonderful time together. It's my great honor to introduce Rabbi Jonathan Rietti. Rabbi Rietti is a student of Rabbi Chaim Kramer, who founded the Breslov Research Institute, and he's part of our BRI team, and it's wonderful that he was able to make it out here and read it. Sit down. I'm very grateful to Rabbi Yossi Katz for inviting me to share with you this morning. Rabbi Chaim Kramer, how many of you know Rabbi Chaim Kramer? Oh, okay, good. So since I'm 17 years old, he's my Rebbe Mukak, my Rebbe for now 41 years, and I'm extremely grateful for everything that I've gleaned from being very close to him, something a few times a week. And when I lived and learned in Eretz Yisrael, for the 3 years that I was there, he was mashgiach in yeshiva in Yerushalayim, so I became very close to him and have since. So my ties with Breslov Research Institute go very far. So I'm especially happy to speak on the subject of Rav Nachman. I don't get to speak about, we call him affectionately Rabbeinu Zal. Does everyone know who I'm referring to if I call him Rabbeinu Zal? Okay, so Rabbeinu Zal, Rav Nachman of Breslov, I would have to admit, if someone asked me where the majority of my own personal inspiration came from, I would say about 98% of it is from Breslov. And there would be no guzma. The 2% that isn't is only because Rav Nachman tells you to learn lots of other svarim, so I end up getting my inspiration elsewhere, but it's really because of Sichas Aran, where he tells you to be like the aristocrats who like to boast about all the countries that they have visited and all the travels and exotic locations that they have been to. So he said a person should try and do that for himself when it comes to Torah, to travel through all the different areas of the Torah, and in that way be able to say, oh, I've been there, or I've been there. So the 2% is from my travels, the 98% is really from Breslov. The presentation this morning is on the subject of my emotions and myself, my emotions and me. Who's the boss? Who's in control? So I'm going to put it to you really, of the two, my mind, myself, my emotions, who's really in control? Any suggestions?
Emotions. Me.
Emotions, okay, we've got one vote for emotions. Two?
Mind.
The mind?
Me. I doubt.
Okay, it's me, okay.
Me.
Me?
Who is it who should know?
Okay. So it's about 5 against 5 so far?
Emotions.
Sorry, emotions? Okay, 6.
Combination.
It's a combination, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, depends on the day, excellent. Alright, so we've got 1 it's a combination, 6 it's emotions, and 5 it's the mind. So that's pretty much it.
Well, how about gut feeling? What is that?
Okay, so we've got to find out where's God in the equation.
God, she's saying gut feeling, G-U-T.
Oh, gut feeling. Oh, gut feeling.
God feeling.
Oh, God fearing. Gut feeling. Yes, I'm in gut feeling. Yes, I'm in gut feeling. Okay. Okay, Hashem controls my emotions.
In me.
Okay, so it's about 6, 5, and a combination. Sorry?
Combination including Hashem and two.
Okay, and then we've got another version which is Hashem is part of that combination. Okay, so that's pretty much the conclusion. Thank you for having me. Are there any questions? Why are you laughing? Oh, I thought I was joking. Okay, fine. Alright, so you know what? Whenever we come to definitions, here we're going to try and define who's the real me that's in the question, me and my emotions, who's the real boss. We have to define who's the real me, and we also have to define emotions. Now, how do you go about defining anything? So the answer is you can open up a dictionary, or we can consult the creator and designer of the universe who gave us a definition for everything. And what I'm going to do this morning is we're going to quickly look at the definition of emotion in Lashon HaKodesh, because Lashon HaKodesh, the biblical tongue of Hebrew, is the language which created reality. It preceded reality. You say every morning, Baruch She'amar, thank you Hashem, we bless you for speaking, V'haya ha'olam, and then the universe existed. So, what created the universe? It was really not Hashem. He created the Aleph base, and with the Aleph base said the words, and those words created reality. So, of course Hashem is the shoresh, the origin, but it's actually language which he used as a tool, so to speak, to create physical reality and even abstract reality, even what you and I would call love and shalom. These are abstract concepts, but that's something that Hashem has created, because the word shalom, the word ava, is what creates that concept. You follow the logic? So what we really have to do is put aside translations. I'll translate myself. Put aside translations and look carefully at what is the word in Lashon HaKodesh for the real me and my emotions. And when we define that, then we're going to return to the subject, and hopefully it will give us the language to define our reality. Because there are several possibilities. Is there a me? And if there is, who is me that's controlling my emotions? And if it's my emotions who control me, is that how I want it to be? And if there's a God behind my emotions, then why have I all these negative emotions of resentment or anger or feeling of possibly even vengeance or just down on myself? There's so many negative emotions, and I'm going to tell it's God who's behind that. We've got to really get some clarity on this. So I'm going to do it basically through the Svarim of Rav Nachman. So here's my starting point. I'm going to start with the word leiv. The word leiv is translated throughout the Torah and Tanakh as heart. Is that right? Just to keep you awake. So, the word heart is actually accurate in a sense, but the problem is that the word leiv throughout Tanakh, throughout the Bible, actually has 4 meanings. This means that whenever we look at the word leiv, we have to identify which of the 4 is it referring to. So for example, it can mean your physical heart. In chapter 28, verse 9 of Shemois, you see Aaron HaKohen wearing the choshen, the breastplate, al liboy, against his heart. That's referring to the physical heart. You have the concept of a heart being simply a mashal. A mashal means it's a metaphor. So for example, we say every morning when we describe Jews going through Kriyas Yam Suf, we say kafu tehoimos, the depths of the ocean at the Yam Suf, the Red Sea, when it split, kafu, it became congealed, Belev Yam, in the heart of the ocean. There's no heart in the ocean. It's a metaphor. It's a mashal for simply being the center. You see that word many times. Lev Hayam. We have it in chapter 4 of Deuteronomy, in Parshas Vayischanan, where Moshe Rabbeinu is describing the event we experienced at Har Sinai, and he said, Har, the mountain, was boyer, flaming, ad lev shamayim, till the heart in heaven. There's no heart in heaven. It's referring to the center of all that noise from the blasting of the shofar, and the thunder and the lightning, and the black cloud. And in the midst of all that, the fire was flaming from the mountain into the heavens, and the language used is belev shamayim. There's no lev in shamayim. It's a metaphor. The other possibility is it could mean the icon, and this is what we usually associate the word heart with, as the icon of emotions. The sad reality, though, is that of these 3, it's hardly ever this one, and I'm going to see in a few moments. The vast majority of the time, and when I say vast majority, for example, out of 102 times in the entire Chumash alone, 98 of those times, 98, the word leiv means mind. The translation is not that way, because the translation we have today is mostly based on popular words. So we don't pay attention to what the word really means throughout Tanakh. And therefore we assume that the Christian Bible, upon which most of our English terminology for the translation of our own Torah is, for the most part, based upon, not deliberately based on it, but just assuming that that's the correct translation, we don't consult our own commentaries enough to realize that the word leiv actually means mind the vast majority of times. The Maharal offers, if you want to know the meaning of any word in the Torah, find where it first appears in the Torah. That word, in its context, in its pasuk, in its verse, will tell you its meaning. So when we look for the word leiv in the Torah, the first time it appears is in Perek Vav, pasuk A, in Parshas Bereishis, where Hashem is giving his description of mankind kind of going downhill. Vayar Hashem saw ki rabba ras ha'adam. The negativity of mankind was abundant. The kol yetzer, and all the design, machshavos. What's machshava mean? Thought. The kol yetzer, all the design, machshavos liboy. The thoughts of his mind, rak kol hayom, was negative all day long. Where do you do your thinking? In your heart or your mind? You do it in your mind. Oh, interesting. The first place the word leiv appears in the Torah is in the context of the thinking of your mind. We actually say every single morning, there's a likud, there's a collection of verses we say before Pesukei Zimra. Those verses, some of them come from Mishlei. One of them we say every single morning from the book of Proverbs. That's how the translation is in Christianity. Mishlei actually means metaphors, but I'm not going to try and change all the translations today. But it's referring to the book of Mishlei, which really means metaphors. Chapter 19, verse 21, and some of you are very familiar with this. Rabbois machashavos believe ish. There are many thoughts in the mind of a person. Where do you do your thinking? In your heart or your mind? If we really thought it's in the heart, it would be really problematic for anybody who knows someone who's had a heart transplant. But that's not how it, you see, it doesn't go that way. The word leiv has 4 different meanings. The one that is most prominent is mind or thought. So I say mind or thought because the word leiv means mind. Levavecha, where the word is doubled over, levav. Says Sefer Haredim, I think Sefer Haredim in Perek Tes tells us wherever the word leiv is doubled over, it's referring to both your thoughts. What are both your thoughts? Positive and negative. For this, I'm going to share with you what Rav Nachman himself says, and it's in Torah Memtes in Chelik Aleph. That's Torah number 49, and he spells it out. But this is, you'll find when you look carefully at the Mefarshim, the commentaries on the word leiv, you discover that the word leiv is not the icon of emotions more than 90% of the time, 95, 98% of the time. It's referring to what you're thinking. So in the words of Rav Nachman, he says, Nimsa shehalev hu hatzayir. The leiv, your mind, is the tzayir, is the designer. A tzayir is a designer. The word siur means design. Yetzer, hara, yetzer tov, really means an internal designer that's good and an internal designer that's bad. And I'll explain. Continues Reb Nachman, Surah Kemoshe Kasu, because the pasuk says, Surah Levavi. We call God the Sur, the designer Levavi of my thoughts. The Is Yitzra Letav Ulavish. There's a Yetzer Tov and there's a Yetzer Hara. Kemoshe Amru Rabbi Zal, as the Gemara tells us in Brachas Daf Samach Aleph, Vayitzar B'Shnei Yudin. When God created man, He created him 2 components. The part that was created was the neshama that was blown into him. But the body was not created, it was designed. What's the difference between creation and design? We have to be precise with the Torah because the Torah uses terminology, and unfortunately we're so corrupted by translations that we're not paying attention to words. I'll give you an example. Thanks to the King James Bible, where God's names, Elohim, Kel, Tzvakos, Shakai, Yudkei, Vadkei, Adnos, are translated G-O-D, G-O-D every time. God, 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 God. Now, ArtScroll, bless them, have made a slight improvement by replacing the word God as Hashem, Hashem, Hashem. Now, the word Hashem means the name. There's nowhere in the entire Tanakh where it uses that. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls himself Elohim, how could we possibly have the gall, the chutzpah, to then change that to Hashem? If Hashem says my name over here is Elokim, my name over here is Yud Kei Vav Kei, my name over here is Adnos, Aleph Dalet and Nun Yud, my name over here is Svakos, my name over here is Shakai. You see, what we've fallen into the trap of doing is basing a translation of our own Torah on economics as opposed to pedagogy. Economics, well, let's just call God's name Hashem every time. But the problem with that is that we're training our children who are reading our own Chumash not to pay attention to detail. Well, if God goes out of his way to call himself a different name in its context, then surely we should meddle with that. So when we talk about Hashem creating man, he only created the part that you and I call the soul, the neshama, but the body was not created, it was designed. Design means you take something that's already created and now you shape it from that. So the body of man came from the earth. The earth was already created. That was created. So the wording in the Torah, in the description of the creation of man, is Vayitzar Hashem Elokim. Hashem, the all-powerful, constant power, designed man, afar, from the dirt, the earth, of the ground, ha'adama, vayipach ba'apav, second component, and he blew into his nostrils, nishmat chayim, a soul that lives forever. I'm using the language lives forever because unfortunately we are so drowned in Christian-based translations that we actually mistranslate hundreds and hundreds of words that we take for granted. L'chaim. L'chaim, what does chaim mean? To life. So, Chaim, we usually translate to life. Actually, let's be very, very clear with ourselves. The Torah is perfect. Do you agree?
Yes.
And because it's perfect, the language which it was written in is perfect. There are no mistakes. So, is this Lashon Yachid or Rabbim? Is this singular or plural? Plural. Thank you. So, what's the correct translation? Life. Excellent. Ladies, there is no word in the entire Tanakh for life. Listen very carefully. If there's no word for something in Lashon HaKodesh, in biblical Hebrew, but there is in English, what does that mean about the English term? It's a human perception of our reality, but it's not in God's dictionary. Do you follow? There's no such thing as life. Do you know why? This just doesn't exist.
Because we're one.
Oh, Chayim means lives. You see, we don't believe this is the real life and only life. We know there's another life, which is much more real. In fact, we even call this life Olam HaSheker, the world that's not real. That's not true. That's really deceptive. Olam HaDimyon. It's also called a world of imagination. It's called Olam HaNisayon, the world which is one big test. Or Olam Hazeh, it's this world. Olam Hazeh, La'afuke, to exclude Olam Haba, the world to come. So we don't believe in one life, we believe in lives. Whenever you have a word in Lashon HaKodesh and there's no equivalent, it means it doesn't exist in God's reality. So you've got a lot of words like that. Yes, ma'am?
I'm just wondering, are you saying that there are many different levels of existence concurrently, or that we undergo as a neshama several lives?
Both. Right now, you and I, we're all muggles, and really there's a magical world that we're not familiar with. But if we were to really know that Olam HaEmes is way more real than this world, we're told, for example, the Gemara in Brachas Daf Vav tells us that if the eye were given permission to see, we would see the spiritual forces on each side of us, and the body would not be able to take that revelation. We would die. You can call it from fright, but that's just simply a revelation of reality that you and I have not got the internal capacity emotionally to hold that in. We would burst. If God were to reveal the real reason for all Yisurin, for any type of suffering or even tragedy, the revelation would be so exhilarating, our blood vessels would burst from excitement because of the perfection in the justice. So God hides that from us so that we've got room to make choices and not be forced by the revelation of Emes, the real world, which is Olam HaEmes, which is taking place simultaneously. It could be that I might have to come back down in another life, and that's another reason why you got the word Chaim. But there's no word for Chaim in singular. The word Chai, by the way, is an adjective. It means alive. This is not the singular version of Chaim. It's an adjective. That means Oid Avinu Hai, our father's still alive. Oid Yosef Chai, Yosef's still alive. But there's no word for life. There can't be. So this is very important to recognize, because when we look at the words Vayitzar Hashem Elokim, Hashem designed Adam, Afa min Adam, Avipach Ba'apav Nishmas Chayim. He breathed into him a soul of lives. That soul exists forever in every single dimension. Do you follow? Is this making sense? Yeah. So that when man dies, the body goes back to the ground where it came from, and the soul returns to where it came from, which was the Kadosh Baruch Hu himself. So there's a soul in each of us, which is actually called, and this is the pasuk in Eov, I think it's in Perek Yud Beis pasuk Lamed. It's called Chelek Elokam Mima'al. It's, so to speak, a portion of a Kadosh Baruch Hu himself from above. That's why the Arizal offers that when Hashem breathed into man's nostrils a soul that exists forever in every dimension, it means to say, Kaviyachal, as a metaphor, God blew into us from himself. The example he gives, the Arizal gives, is a glass blower. A glass blower, I should translate myself, a glass blower, when he blows through the tube, he's blowing from his lungs, the air inside his lungs, almost his essence, and he's transferring that into the glass that's now being shaped by his breath. So the concept of Hashem blowing into our nostrils, Nishmat Chayim, so to speak, is HaKadosh Baruch Hu breathing into us a Chelek Elokam Mimal. Literally, we don't have the right words to describe this, but a part of Hashem is actually inside of us. That part that when our physical body dies is called niftar. Niftar doesn't mean die, it means it's patur. It is presently exempt from the existence in this world. But when we are reunited at Tchiyat HaMetim, at the resurrection of the dead, that's when the body and the soul gets reunited. So the body is only temporarily missing, but you and I, we call it death. But it's not really death in the sense of permanent. That's why every single day in Shemona Esrei, by the way, there are many themes in Shemona Esrei. The one theme that recurs the most times, the one topic that comes up again and again and again, more than any other subject in the entire Shemona Esrei, the standing prayer, is Tchias HaMesim. We mention it 5 times. Mechaye Mesim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you are Mechaye, and that's present tense. You are constantly bringing life to those who die. That means to say, when a person dies, their body goes into the ground, but the soul gets a new life in the real dimension. So, going back now to understand, God deliberately misspelt the word Yitzar with 2 yuds. Vayitzar Hashem Elokim, he spelled with 2 yuds. When he dictated to Moshe Rabbeinu how to spell this word, Moshe Rabbeinu, by the way, he put down the quill many times. One of the times was not now, but he said, Rebbeinu Shalom, why are you spelling it with 2 yuds? It's only 1. Do you follow? So he said, because I've created 2 yetzes in every single person. Now the Christian translation is inclination. So you've got evil inclination and good inclination, but that's not what it means. A yitzar